Commander Thek stood before the massive viewing window of the orbital station, watching the planet below with growing worry. The world of Korax had once been green and full of life. Now large brown patches covered the surface like ugly scars. The crops were dying and no one knew why. The door behind him opened with a soft sound. His aide, a younger officer named Vel, walked in carrying a data pad. His face looked pale and tired. "Commander, the latest reports from the agricultural centers," Vel said, holding out the device. Thex took the pad and read the numbers. His heart sank. The crop failure was worse than last week. Much worse. "How many worlds now?" Thex asked. 7. "Out of our 12 systems are reporting major crop failures," Vel replied. "The other 5 show early signs of the same problem." Thex closed his eyes. The Vorthak Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their technology was the most advanced anyone had ever seen. Their cities were beautiful crystal towers that reached toward the stars. Their military had never lost a battle. But now they were facing something their weapons could not fight: hunger. The Vorthak had built their entire food system around perfect crops. Every plant was exactly the same. Every seed was made in a laboratory to grow faster, bigger, and stronger than natural plants. For centuries, this system had worked perfectly. The Empire had more food than they could ever need. But 3 years ago, something changed. A disease appeared that their perfect crops could not fight. It spread from world to world, killing everything it touched. The scientists tried everything they knew, but nothing worked. The disease kept changing. Always, staying one step ahead of their cures. On the planet below, Thex could see smoke rising from the cities. Food riots had started last month when the government cut food portions again. People were angry and scared. They did not understand how their mighty empire could be brought down by tiny germs they could not even see. Thex turned to his aide. "What news from the outer colonies?" Vel's expression grew even more grim. "Colony ship Zenith reports complete crop failure on New Vorth. They are requesting emergency food supplies." He paused. "Commander, we barely have enough food for the core worlds now." "And the research stations?" "Still no progress. Dr. Kess believes the pathogen is artificial, but she cannot prove it. Even if she is right, we still have no cure." Thex walked back to his desk and sat down heavily. On his screen were reports from across the Empire. Every day brought worse news. Food production was down 60% and falling. The outer colonies were already talking about rebellion. Some had even suggested abandoning the Empire entirely to search for new worlds to settle. But Thex knew the truth that most citizens did not. There were no suitable worlds left in this region of space. The Vorthak had already claimed all the good planets centuries ago. Beyond their borders lay either empty space or territory controlled by species too primitive to have anything worth taking, or so they had always believed. Far away, on a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system, Dr. Rebecca Martinez sat in her laboratory studying data from deep space monitoring stations. Earth's early warning systems had detected something unusual at the edge of human space 3 weeks ago. Rebecca was tired. She had been working 16-hour days trying to understand the strange signals her equipment was picking up. The patterns did not match anything in their databases of known alien species. Not that humans had met many aliens. A few trading species had made contact over the past 50 years, but most were not much more advanced than humans themselves. Her computer made a soft beeping sound. New data was coming in from the monitoring station at the edge of the solar system. Rebecca opened the file and gasped. The unknown ships were getting closer. She immediately called her supervisor, Dr. James Chen, who arrived at her lab within minutes. Together they studied the sensor readings. "How many ships?" James asked. "At least 20 that we can detect. But they are staying at the edge of our sensor range like they do not want us to see them clearly," Rebecca replied. "Are they heading toward Earth?" Rebecca shook her head. "That is the strange part. They are not approaching. They are just watching, like they are studying us from a distance." James frowned. In his experience, alien species that studied humans from hiding were usually planning something bad. "Have you informed the Space Force?" Yes, Captain Sullivan's ship is already moving to investigate. 3 days later, Captain James Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, studying the alien vessels through his ship's powerful sensors. His crew worked quietly at their stations, all of them feeling the tension. Range to the nearest alien ship? Sullivan asked. 200,000 kilometers and holding, replied his sensor officer, Lieutenant Lisa Park. They maintain exactly that distance no matter how we approach. Any attempts at communication? None, sir. They are not responding to any of our signals. Sullivan studied the ships on his main screen. They were larger than human vessels, but not by much. Their design was elegant, with smooth crystal-like surfaces that seemed to glow with their own light. Beautiful, but somehow sad. Sir, Lieutenant Park called out, I am detecting something odd about their energy signatures. What kind of odd? Their power levels are much lower than they should be for ships of that size, and I am picking up signs of damage to several vessels. Sullivan raised an eyebrow. Battle damage? No, sir. More like neglect. As if they have been traveling for a long time without proper maintenance. As they watched, one of the alien ships slowly turned and began moving away from human space. Then another followed. Within an hour, the entire fleet had vanished into the darkness between stars, but Captain Sullivan had gotten a clear look at them, and what he saw in those brief moments would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The mighty ships were running on emergency power. Their elegant surfaces showed signs of wear and damage. And most telling of all, several of the vessels appeared to be converted cargo ships, packed with what looked like civilian refugees. These were not invaders coming to conquer Earth. These were survivors, desperate and running out of time. Back on the Vorthak station, Commander Thex received a report that made his blood run cold. The scouting mission to the primitive human worlds had returned with disturbing news. The humans had detected them easily and responded with military vessels. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what the scouts had observed about the human worlds. Vast fields of different crops growing side by side. Plants that looked inefficient and chaotic compared to Vorthak agriculture. But plants that were thriving without any sign of the disease that was destroying the empire. For the first time in his career, Commander Thex began to wonder if the Vorthak way of doing things might not be the best way after all. 3 weeks after the alien ships disappeared from the edge of human space, Ambassador Lisa Chen received the most important message of her career. The unknown aliens had sent a transmission to Earth. They wanted to meet. Lisa sat in her office, at the United Earth Council building, reading the translated message for the 5th time. The aliens called themselves the Vorthak Empire. Their message was formal and careful, but she could sense desperation between the words. They want to meet in neutral space, she told President Robert Hayes during their emergency video call. Halfway between our territories, they promised to bring only 3 ships and request we do the same. President Hayes looked worried. What do our military advisors say? Captain Sullivan believes they are not hostile. His report says their ships looked damaged and worn down, like refugees, not invaders. And Dr. Martinez? Lisa smiled slightly. She is excited. She thinks this could be the greatest scientific opportunity in human history. The president was quiet for a moment. Very well, prepare for first contact. Take Dr. Martinez and a full science team. Captain Sullivan will provide security with his ship. 2 days later, the research vessel New Horizon moved slowly through space toward the meeting point. Ambassador Chen stood on the bridge next to Dr. Rebecca Martinez, both women watching the main screen with nervous excitement. Contact on sensors, reported Lieutenant Tom Wilson from his position. 3 vessels approaching from the opposite direction. The alien ships appeared on screen, and everyone on the bridge fell silent. The vessels were beautiful beyond description. They looked like they were made of living crystal, with smooth surfaces that caught and reflected the light of nearby stars. But as Captain Sullivan had reported, they showed signs of wear and damage. They are requesting permission to dock with our ship, Wilson announced. Ambassador Chen nodded. Grant permission and activate the translation system. An hour later, Chen found herself in the New Horizons main conference room, facing three alien beings unlike anything humans had ever seen. The Vorthak were tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly in the light. Their leader introduced himself as High Counselor Vex. "We thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Vex said through the translation device. His voice was deep and musical, but Chen could hear sadness in it. "We are honored by your visit," Chen replied carefully, "though I must admit we are curious about why you were watching our worlds from a distance." Vex was quiet for a long moment. His two companions, who had been introduced as Science Director Nix and Military Commander Krell, looked uncomfortable. "We were studying you," Vex finally said, "trying to understand how your species manages to survive." Dr. Martinez leaned forward. "Survive what?" "The hunger," Vex replied simply. The human delegation exchanged glances. Chen spoke carefully. "Perhaps you could explain what you mean." What followed was the most shocking revelation in human history. Vex told them about the Vorthak Empire, which had ruled 12 star systems for 3,000 years. He described their advanced technology, their crystal cities, their perfect society. And then he told them about the plague. "Our crops are dying," Vex explained. "All of them, on every world. We estimate 2 years before complete agricultural collapse." Dr. Martinez sat forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming diplomatic protocol. "What kind of crops do you grow?" Science Director Nix answered. She was younger than Vex, with brighter blue skin and large dark eyes. "Bioengineered organisms. Each one is genetically perfect for maximum yield and nutrition." "Identical crops?" Martinez asked. "Of course. Why would we want variation? Variation means some plants are weaker than others." Martinez felt her heart racing. "And this disease affects all your crops?" "Every single one. It started 3 years ago on our outer agricultural worlds and has spread everywhere. Our scientists cannot stop it." Commander Krell spoke for the first time. His voice was harder than the others, more military. "We have observed your worlds. Your agriculture appears primitive, but your crops show no signs of disease. We need to understand how." Ambassador Chen realized they had reached the crucial moment. "Before we continue, I need to ask you directly. Are you planning to invade our worlds to take our agricultural resources?" The three aliens looked shocked. Vex spoke quickly. "No, we would never consider such a thing. We are asking for help, not planning conquest. But you have advanced technology and weapons. You could easily take what you need." Vex's expression grew sad. "Ambassador Chen, our empire is built on order and precision. We have never taken what was not freely given. Even now, facing extinction, we would rather die than become thieves." The honesty in his voice convinced Chen completely. These beings were truly desperate, but they maintained their honor even in the face of death. Dr. Martinez pulled out her data pad and showed the aliens pictures of Earth's farms. "Our agriculture is not primitive. It is diverse. We grow hundreds of different varieties of each crop. Some are stronger, some are weaker, but they are all different." Science Director Nix studied the images with growing excitement. "But this is so inefficient. Why maintain inferior varieties?" "Because diversity protects us. If a disease kills one variety, the others survive. Then we can breed the survivors to create new resistant varieties." The Vorthak delegation went completely silent. Chen could see them processing this information, understanding dawning on their faces. "You mean," Vex said slowly, "that your weakness is actually your strength?" "Exactly," Martinez replied. "We learned long ago that putting all our crops in one genetic basket was dangerous. So we kept many different baskets." Commander Krell looked confused. "But surely this means lower food production?" "Actually, no. When you add up all the different varieties, we produce more food per acre than most single crop systems. And we never face total crop failure." Science Director Nix was practically vibrating with excitement. "Could your diverse genetics help our crops?" Dr. Martinez smiled. I would need to study samples of your diseased crops and the pathogen that is killing them. But yes, I believe crossbreeding with Earth varieties might create resistant hybrids. High Counselor Vex looked at his companions, then back at the human delegation. What would you require in exchange for this help? Ambassador Chen had been expecting this question. Nothing. If we can help save your people, we will do it freely. The aliens looked stunned. Commander Krell spoke with disbelief in his voice. You would help us for nothing. We are strangers. We were spying on your worlds. You were desperate, Chen replied. And you asked for help instead of taking what you needed by force. That tells us everything we need to know about your character. Vex stood and bowed deeply. Ambassador Chen, Dr. Martinez, your species has shown us more honor in one day than we expected to find in the entire galaxy. If we survive this crisis, the Vorthak Empire will be forever in your debt. As the meeting ended and both sides prepared to return to their ships, Dr. Martinez felt a thrill of excitement. She was about to attempt the greatest agricultural project in history. Success would save an entire civilization. Failure would mean the death of billions of beings. But as she looked at the hope in Science Director Nix's eyes, Martinez knew they would find a way. Humans and Vorthak working together could accomplish what neither species could do alone. The age of cooperation was about to begin. Dr. Rebecca Martinez had not slept properly in 4 days. Her laboratory at the Global Agricultural Institute was filled with alien plant samples and microscopic images of the mysterious disease killing Vorthak crops. Coffee cups and food containers covered every available surface as she worked around the clock to understand the problem. Her colleague, Dr. Michael Thompson, knocked on the lab door and entered carrying fresh coffee. Michael worked at the Global Seed Vault, a massive underground facility that stored seeds from every plant variety on Earth. Any progress? Michael asked, handing her the steaming cup. Rebecca rubbed her tired eyes and pointed at her computer screen. The Vorthak pathogen is unlike anything we have ever seen. It changes its genetic structure every few days. By the time they develop a treatment, the disease has already evolved to resist it. What about their crops? That is the real problem. Every single Vorthak food plant has identical genetics. They took one perfect variety of each crop and grew nothing else for 3,000 years. Michael whistled softly. No genetic diversity at all? None. When this disease learned how to kill one plant, it could kill them all. Rebecca pulled up another screen showing Earth crops. But look at our wheat varieties. We have over 2,000 different types, each with slightly different resistance to diseases and pests. Dr. Jennifer Adams arrived at that moment. She worked at the Agricultural Genetics Institute and had been helping analyze the alien samples. Rebecca, I have been running computer models all night. I think we might have found something important. Jennifer sat down at the computer and opened her research files. I took genetic samples from 50 different earth grain varieties and ran simulations of what would happen if we crossbred them with Vorthak crops. And, Rebecca asked, 17 of our varieties show strong resistance to the Vorthak pathogen. If we could create hybrid plants using both Earth and Vorthak genetics, the resulting crops might survive the disease. Michael leaned forward with interest. Which varieties worked best? Mostly the old heritage varieties, the types that farmers grew hundreds of years ago before industrial agriculture. They survived for centuries because they were naturally tough and resistant to many different problems. Rebecca felt excitement building. So our ancestors' old-fashioned farming methods might save an entire alien civilization? Exactly. The Vorthak bred for perfection, but perfection means no ability to adapt. Our ancestors bred for survival. The 3 scientists spent the morning developing their theory. By afternoon, they were ready to present their findings to the government. President Robert Hayes called an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. The council chamber was packed with representatives from every nation on Earth. President Hayes sat at the head of the large oval table, with Ambassador Lisa Chen on his right and Dr. Martinez on his left. Ladies and gentlemen, President Hayes began, Dr. Martinez and her team believe they have found a way to save the Vorthak Empire. Doctor, please explain your findings. Rebecca stood and activated the wall display. Images of diseased alien crops appeared next to healthy earth plants. The Vorthak crisis was caused by their pursuit of genetic perfection, she began. They created crops that were highly efficient, but had no natural defenses against new diseases. When this pathogen appeared, their entire food system collapsed. Senator William Davis from North America raised his hand. But why should we help them? They are aliens. Our responsibility is to our own people. Ambassador Chen answered before Rebecca could speak. Senator, the Vorthak Empire controls 12 star systems. If their civilization collapses, millions of refugees might flood into our region of space. It is better to help them solve their problems at home. Representative Maria Santos from South America spoke next. What exactly are you proposing we do? Dr. Michael Thompson stepped forward. We want to share our seed diversity with them. Take samples from our heritage varieties and help them develop hybrid crops that combine Vorthak efficiency with earth resistance to disease. And in return? Asked Representative Chen Wei from Asia. Nothing, Rebecca replied. We do this because it is the right thing to do. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some representatives supported helping the aliens. Others worried about giving away Earth's agricultural secrets. A few suggested demanding advanced technology in exchange. President Hayes called for quiet. Dr. Martinez, what are the risks of this plan? Very low risk for us. We would only be sharing genetic information about common food crops. The Vorthak already have more advanced technology than we do, so we are not giving them any military advantage. And the benefits? Rebecca smiled. If this works, we will have prevented the collapse of an advanced civilization. We will also learn about their agricultural techniques which could help us grow more food on Earth. Representative David Park from the Pacific region asked, how long would this project take? Working together, we estimate 6 months to develop the first hybrid varieties, another year to test them on Vorthak worlds. If successful, they could begin full production within 2 years. Just in time, Ambassador Chen added. High Counselor Vex told us they have less than 2 years of food reserves remaining. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives worried about the cost of the project. Others questioned whether they could trust alien species they had just met. A few suggested that helping the Vorthak might anger other alien civilizations. Finally, President Hayes called for a vote. All those in favor of the Agricultural Cooperation Project? The result was close, but the motion passed. Earth would help save the Vorthak Empire. Over the following weeks, the largest scientific collaboration in human history began. Dr. Martinez led a team of agricultural specialists preparing seeds and genetic samples for transport to Vorthak space. Dr. Thompson opened the global seed vault to provide heritage varieties from every continent on Earth. The work was complex and delicate. Each Earth variety had to be tested for compatibility with Vorthak crops. Computer models ran thousands of simulations to predict which combinations would work best. Teams of geneticists worked day and night to prepare the hybrid breeding programs. Meanwhile, Ambassador Chen coordinated with High Counselor Vex to plan the exchange mission. The Vorthak would provide detailed information about their agricultural systems and the mysterious pathogen. In return, humans would bring seeds, breeding stock, and most importantly, knowledge about managing diverse agricultural systems. Captain James Sullivan prepared his ship for the most important mission in human history. The UES Defiant would carry the scientific team to Vorthak space, along with carefully preserved samples of Earth's agricultural heritage. As the departure date approached, Dr. Martinez felt both excitement and nervousness. They were about to attempt something that had never been tried before, saving an alien civilization through agricultural science. But she also felt pride. Humanity's greatest strength was not advanced weapons or powerful technology. It was their willingness to help others, even strangers from distant stars. The diversity that made Earth's agriculture so resilient also made human society strong and adaptable. On the night before departure, Rebecca stood in her laboratory looking at the sealed containers of seeds that would travel to alien worlds. Each container held the genetic heritage of Earth's farmers, passed down through thousands of generations. Tomorrow, those ancient seeds would begin a new chapter in galactic history, not through conquest or domination, but through cooperation and mutual aid. The Vorthak Empire had ruled through perfection and control, but they were about to learn that true strength came from diversity, adaptation, and the willingness to help others succeed. As Rebecca finally went home to pack for the journey, she wondered what other surprises humanity might have in store for the galaxy. Dr. Rebecca Martinez stepped off the shuttle onto the crystal platform of Vorthak Station 1, the largest orbital facility she had ever seen. The walls around her seemed to be made of living light, pulsing gently with soft blue and green colors. Despite its beauty, she could see signs of neglect everywhere. Panels were dim, walkways showed wear, and fewer workers moved through the corridors than the station was designed for. High Counselor Vex waited to greet the human delegation. He looked thinner than when they first met, his blue skin paler than before. The food shortage was affecting everyone, even the highest leaders. "Dr. Martinez, welcome to our world," Vex said through his translation device. "We are grateful beyond words for your help." Behind Martinez, Captain James Sullivan and his security team looked around with professional interest. The Vorthak technology was impressive, but Sullivan noticed the same signs of decay that Martinez had seen. This once mighty empire was slowly falling apart. "We brought everything we promised," Martinez replied, gesturing to the cargo containers, being unloaded from their shuttle. "Seeds from 200 Earth varieties, genetic samples, and breeding equipment. My team is ready to begin work immediately." Science Director Nix appeared beside Vex, her dark eyes bright with excitement. "Dr. Martinez, we have prepared laboratory space for your team. Our biotechnician Krell is eager to begin the hybrid experiments." As they walked through the station corridors, Martinez was amazed by what she saw. The Vorthak had technology that seemed like magic compared to Earth science. Plants grew in perfect geometric patterns under artificial suns that never dimmed. Automated systems monitored every leaf and root with incredible precision. "This is remarkable," she told Nix. "Your growing systems are centuries ahead of ours." "But they are failing," Nix replied sadly. "All our precision and control cannot save us from this disease." In the main agricultural laboratory, Martinez met the Vorthak science team. They were brilliant researchers, but she quickly realized they had never dealt with the kind of chaos that came with natural diversity. Dr. Tom Wilson, the human agricultural engineer, tried to explain Earth farming methods to a group of confused Vorthak scientists. "You deliberately plant different varieties next to each other?" asked a Vorthak researcher named Zell. "Even though some grow faster than others?" "Especially because they grow differently," Wilson replied. "The fast-growing plants protect the slow ones early in the season. The slow ones produce food later when the fast ones are finished. And if disease kills one type, the others survive." The Vorthak scientists looked at each other in bewilderment. Their entire approach to agriculture was based on making everything identical and predictable. Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth soil specialist, had an even harder time explaining her work. She had brought containers of Earth soil filled with millions of different microorganisms. "You want to put random bacteria in our growing systems?" Biotechnician Krell asked with obvious horror. "Not random. Diverse," Sarah replied patiently. "These microorganisms work together to help plants resist disease and grow stronger. Your sterile systems are too clean. Plants need some friendly bacteria to stay healthy." Meanwhile, Martinez worked directly with Science Director Nix to analyze the pathogen-killing Vorthak crops. Under powerful microscopes, they watched the disease change its structure in real time. "It is like it is learning," Nix said with fascination and fear. "Every time we develop a treatment, it adapts." "That is exactly what is happening," Martinez replied. "This pathogen evolved to attack your uniform crops. Since all your plants are identical, anything that can kill one can kill them all." She pulled up genetic data from Earth crops on her portable computer. "But look at these wheat varieties. Each one is slightly different. The pathogen might kill some plants, but others will survive. Then we breed the survivors to create the Next generation. Working together, the human and Vorthak teams began the delicate process of creating hybrid crops. They took genetic material from Earth heritage varieties and carefully combined it with Vorthak-engineered plants. The first attempts failed. The genetic differences between Earth and Vorthak crops were enormous. Plants that looked promising in Sudnelly, the laboratory died when exposed to actual growing conditions. But slowly, success began to emerge. A hybrid grain that combined Earth disease resistance with Vorthak high yield, survived infection, and produced food. A vegetable variety that mixed Earth hardiness with Vorthak nutrition thrived in the station's growing chambers. The breakthrough came when Dr. Wilson suggested something that shocked the Vorthak scientists. Instead of trying to create one perfect hybrid variety, they should create dozens of different combinations. Make a whole family of related plants, Wilson explained. Some will be better at fighting disease. Others will produce more food. Some will grow in poor soil. Others will resist bad weather. Plant them all together. High Counselor Vex visited the laboratory to see the results. He stood quietly for a long time, watching the mixed collection of hybrid plants growing side by side. Some were tall, others short. Some had large leaves, others small. Some grew quickly, others slowly. It looked so random, he said finally. So uncontrolled. But it works, Martinez replied, showing him the test results. Disease infection rates are down 90% compared to your original crops, and total food production is actually higher than your old system. Vex studied the data with growing amazement. How is this possible? Because diversity is not weakness, Martinez explained. It is strength. When plants are all different, they support each other. They use resources more efficiently. They protect each other from problems. As word of the successful experiment spread through the station, something unexpected began to happen. Young Vorthak scientists started asking questions that went beyond agriculture. If diversity makes plants stronger, asked researcher Nix, during a team meeting, does it also make society stronger? The question hung in the air. For 3,000 years, Vorthak society had been built on rigid order and uniformity. Everyone had their assigned role. No one questioned the system. But now they were learning that the natural world worked differently. Diversity, variation, and even some chaos made living systems more resilient and successful. Captain Sullivan noticed the change in his daily reports to Earth. The Vorthak are not just learning about agriculture, he wrote. They are starting to question their entire way of life. Meanwhile, the hybrid crops were ready for field testing. Seeds and young plants were loaded onto Vorthak ships for transport to their agricultural worlds. If the laboratory success could be repeated on a large scale, the empire would be saved. Dr. Martinez felt both pride and nervousness as she watched the first shipments depart. They had created something entirely new, crops that had never existed before, combining the best of two different worlds. But more importantly, they had started something that could not be stopped. The Vorthak Empire was beginning to learn that their pursuit of perfection had made them weak. Only by embracing diversity and change could they become truly strong. As the ships disappeared into the darkness of space, carrying Earth's genetic gift to alien worlds, Martinez wondered what other changes this collaboration would bring. The agricultural crisis was just the beginning. The Vorthak were about to discover that saving their crops might mean changing their entire civilization. 6 months after the first hybrid crops were planted on Vorthak worlds, the results exceeded everyone's wildest hopes. Not only were the plants surviving the deadly pathogen, they were producing more food than the Empire had seen in decades. But something else was growing alongside the crops. Questions. On the agricultural world of Nexus Prime, young Vorthak farmer Kess stood in her fields watching human agricultural specialist Dr. Tom Wilson teach traditional earth farming methods to a group of local workers. The humans did things that seemed completely wrong by Vorthak standards, yet somehow worked better than anything she had seen before. "Why do you plant the tall crops next to the short ones?" Kess asked Wilson as they walked between the rows. Wilson, smiled and pointed to a section where earth corn grew next to Vorthak ground vegetables. The corn provides shade for the vegetables during the hottest part of the day. The vegetables help keep moisture in the soil for the corn roots. They help each other. But our efficiency calculations show that uniform planting produces optimal results, Kess replied, confused. Your calculations were based on perfect conditions, Wilson explained. But real life is not perfect. Weather changes, soil varies, insects attack. When plants are different, they can handle these problems better. That evening, Kess sat in her home thinking about Wilson's words. If diverse plants were stronger than identical ones, what did that mean for Vorthak society? For 3,000 years, everyone had been taught that uniformity was strength. Citizens were assigned roles based on genetic testing. No one was allowed to change careers or question their place in the social order. But now humans were showing them that diversity created strength, not weakness. Kess was not the only one having these thoughts. Across the empire, young Vorthak were beginning to ask dangerous questions. On the industrial world of Korvax, factory worker Jenth watched human engineer Dr. Sarah Kim work with a mixed team of Vorthak technicians. The humans included people from different backgrounds, different specialties, even different ways of thinking. Yet they accomplished more in a week than most Vorthak teams managed in months. How do you make decisions when everyone thinks differently? Jenth asked Dr. Kim during a break. We talk about it, Kim replied. Everyone shares their ideas. We argue, we debate, we consider different possibilities. Then we choose the best solution. But who decides what is best? Usually, the group decides together. Sometimes we vote. Sometimes we compromise and try a solution that combines several ideas. Jenth was amazed. In Vorthak society, decisions were made by whoever ranked highest in the social hierarchy. Lower-ranking individuals were expected to obey without question. What if the group makes the wrong choice? Jenth asked. Then we learn from the mistake and try something different, Kim said with a shrug. Making mistakes is how we learn and improve. The idea that mistakes could be valuable was revolutionary to the Vorthak mind. Their society punished failure severely. Citizens who made errors were demoted or reassigned to lower positions, but humans seemed to treat mistakes as opportunities to learn and grow. Word of these conversations spread through the Empire's communication networks. Young Vorthak began meeting in small groups to discuss what they were learning from the humans. They called themselves diversity councils, and their ideas were spreading faster than the hybrid crops. High Counselor Vex became aware of this movement during a routine briefing from his intelligence advisors. Sir, we have reports of unauthorized gatherings on 17 different worlds. Security Chief Thak informed him. Citizens are discussing human social concepts and questioning traditional authority structures. Vex was quiet for a long moment. Part of him wanted to suppress these discussions immediately. The Empire had maintained order for millennia by ensuring everyone knew their place and stayed in it. But another part of him remembered Dr. Martinez's words about diversity creating strength. If diverse crops were saving his empire, perhaps diverse ideas could make it even stronger. What specific ideas are being discussed? Vex asked. Concepts like democratic decision-making, career mobility, and individual choice. Some groups are even suggesting that citizens should be allowed to change their social roles based on interest and ability, rather than genetic assignment. Before Vex could respond, Science Director Nix entered the room. She had just returned from visiting the human homeworld as part of the cultural exchange program. High Counselor, she said, her eyes bright with excitement. I have just experienced the most remarkable thing. I attended a human university where students from hundreds of different backgrounds study together. They share ideas freely, challenge their teachers, and collaborate on projects across all disciplines. And the results? Innovation beyond anything we have achieved. They are developing new technologies, new art forms, new ways of understanding the universe, all because they encourage different viewpoints instead of suppressing them. Vex sat back in his chair, considering this information. The agricultural crisis had forced him to accept human help, but he had not expected their influence to spread so far into Vorthak society. What do you recommend? He asked Nix. I recommend we learn from them. Just as we learned about agriculture, let our citizens explore these new ideas. See what innovations emerge when we allow diversity of thought as well as diversity of crops. Security Chief Thak looked horrified. Sir, this could destabilize the entire social order. The social order was already failing, Vex replied quietly. Our rigid system could not solve the agricultural crisis. Perhaps it is time to consider that other aspects of our society might also benefit from change. Over the following months, Vex made a decision that would transform the Vorthak Empire forever. Instead of suppressing the diversity councils, he officially recognized them. Citizens were given the right to meet, discuss ideas, and propose changes to their communities. The results were immediate and dramatic. On worlds where diversity councils were active, food production increased even more than expected as local farmers adapted the hybrid crops to their specific conditions. Industrial worlds developed new technologies by combining human innovation methods with Vorthak precision. Art and culture flourished as citizens explored creative expression for the first time in their lives. But the most significant change was in the government itself. Citizens began demanding representation in the decisions that affected their lives. They wanted to vote for their leaders instead of being assigned rulers based on genetic caste. Ambassador Lisa Chen, who had been stationed on Vorthak Station, one as the human diplomatic representative, watched these changes with fascination and some concern. Are you sure about this? She asked Vex during one of their regular meetings. Your society is changing very rapidly. Some of your people seem frightened by the pace of transformation. Vex looked older than when they first met, but also more alive. Ambassador Chen, 3 months ago my people were facing extinction. Our perfect system was killing us slowly through stagnation. Now we face the future with hope. But there are protests on some worlds. Conservative factions want to return to the old ways. Change is never easy, Vex acknowledged. But we have learned that diversity makes us stronger. That includes diversity of opinion about how fast we should change. Chen smiled at his response. The Vorthak leader was beginning to think like a human politician, considering multiple viewpoints and seeking compromise solutions. What comes next, she asked. Elections, Vex replied. For the first time in our history, citizens will choose their own leaders. I have announced that I will run for the position of president rather than ruling as High Counselor. And if you lose? Vex laughed, a sound that would have been unthinkable from a Vorthak leader just a year earlier. Then I will congratulate my opponent and help them succeed. That is what humans call democracy. As Chen filed her report to Earth that evening, she reflected on the extraordinary transformation she had witnessed. The Vorthak Empire had not just survived their agricultural crisis. They had emerged as a completely different civilization. But she wondered what challenges this new diversity of thought might bring. Freedom was messy and complicated. Democracy required constant work and compromise. The Vorthak were about to learn that saving their empire was easier than learning to govern it democratically. Still, as she watched young Vorthak and human students working together in the station's new integrated research facilities, Chen felt optimistic about the future. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place. 5 years after first contact, Admiral James Sullivan stood on the observation deck of New Terra Colony, watching human and Vorthak children play together in the gardens below. The sight still amazed him. When he first encountered those mysterious, alien ships at the edge of human space, he never could have imagined this outcome. The colony was one of 12 joint settlements now thriving throughout the region. What had begun as an agricultural rescue mission had grown into the greatest alliance in galactic history. Dr. Rebecca Martinez joined Sullivan at the viewing window. She now held the title Director of Interspecies Agricultural Development, overseeing farming projects on 40 different worlds. Her work had not only saved the Vorthak, but had revolutionized food production for both species. The harvest reports came in this morning, she told Sullivan. Production is up 18% across all joint colonies. The hybrid crops are adapting to local conditions even better than we hoped. Sullivan nodded, but his attention was focused on something else. Rebecca, do you see what those children are doing down there? Martinez looked more closely at the garden. Human and Vorthak youngsters were working together to plant a new section, but they were not following any adult instructions. They were experimenting, trying different combinations of plants, testing new arrangements. They are creating their own agricultural innovations, she realized, without being taught. Exactly. They are thinking like scientists and farmers at the same time. This generation will accomplish things neither of our species could manage alone. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of President Vex, formerly High Counselor of the Vorthak Empire. The transformation in Vorthak society had been so complete that they had renamed themselves the Vorthak Republic and held democratic elections. Vex had won the presidency by a comfortable margin, campaigning on a platform of continued cooperation with humanity. Admiral Sullivan, Director Martinez. Vex greeted them warmly. I wanted to thank you personally before the ceremony begins. Today marked the 5th anniversary of first contact, and leaders from both species had gathered at New Terra Colony for a special celebration. But more importantly, they were here to sign the Diversity Accords, a treaty that would change the galaxy forever. The thanks belong to your people, Mr. President, Sullivan replied. You had the wisdom to ask for help instead of trying to take what you needed by force. Vex smiled. We had little choice. Our empire was dying. But you are right, that we chose cooperation over conquest. I think that choice saved more than just our lives, it saved our souls. As they walked toward the ceremony hall, Martinez reflected on the incredible changes of the past 5 years. The agricultural crisis had been solved within the first year. Crossbreeding Earth heritage varieties with Vorthak-engineered crops had produced food plants that were both highly productive and naturally resistant to disease. But the real transformation had been social and political. Exposure to human concepts of diversity and democracy had triggered a peaceful revolution. Throughout Vorthak space, citizens who had lived their entire lives in rigid social castes suddenly discovered they could choose their own careers, move to different worlds, and participate in governing their society. The transition had not been easy. Some Vorthak had struggled with the freedom to make their own decisions. Conservative factions had resisted change and demanded a return to the old ways. There had been protests, political conflicts, and even some violence as different groups argued about the pace of transformation. But gradually, democracy had taken root. Local elections led to regional governments, which eventually culminated in the first empire-wide presidential election. The former subjects of an authoritarian regime had become citizens of a representative republic. Meanwhile, humanity had also changed. Contact with the Vorthak had accelerated human technological development by decades. Vorthak crystal growing techniques revolutionized human manufacturing. Their precision biotechnology enhanced Earth's medical capabilities. Their space travel methods opened new regions of the galaxy to human exploration. But perhaps more importantly, the partnership had given humanity a new sense of purpose. Earth had become the center of a growing network of cooperation between different species. Human diplomats, scientists, and teachers were working on dozens of worlds, sharing the lessons of diversity and democratic governance. The ceremony hall was filled with representatives from both species, as well as observers from other alien civilizations who had heard about the remarkable human-Vorthak alliance. Ambassador Lisa Chen, now serving as Earth's first interspecies relations secretary, took the podium to begin the proceedings. 5 years ago, we faced a crisis that could have ended in tragedy, Chen announced to the gathered crowd. Two very different civilizations met at a moment when one was dying and the other was unknown. We could have chosen fear, suspicion, or exploitation. She paused, looking out at the mixed audience of humans and Vorthak. Instead, we chose to help each other. Today, we formalize the lessons we have learned into a treaty that will guide our relationship with all future species we encounter. President Vex stepped forward to read the key provisions of the Diversity Accords. We, the peoples of Earth and the Vorthak Republic, hereby establish the following principles for interspecies relations. First, that diversity in all its forms is a source of strength, not weakness. Biological, cultural, and intellectual diversity shall be protected and encouraged in all our joint endeavors. Second, that cooperation produces better results than competition. We commit to sharing knowledge, resources, and opportunities fairly among all member species. Third, that democratic governance and individual freedom are fundamental rights. No species shall impose its social system on another, but all species have the right to learn about and adopt democratic principles if they choose. Fourth, that no civilization should face extinction through uniformity. We commit to maintaining genetic, cultural, and technological diversity as a defense against future crises. As Vex finished reading the Accords, Director Martinez thought about how different things might have been. If the Vorthak had chosen conquest over cooperation, both civilizations would have suffered. If humans had refused to help strangers from distant stars, an entire species would have died. But they had chosen differently. They had chosen hope over fear, cooperation over conflict, diversity over uniformity. The formal signing ceremony was followed by a celebration that lasted well into the evening. Human musicians played alongside Vorthak artists, creating new forms of music that neither species could have developed alone. Children from both worlds ran through the gardens, inventing games that combined human creativity with Vorthak precision. Later, that night, Admiral Sullivan found himself back at the observation window, now joined by President Vex and Director Martinez. The colony below was quiet, but lights in the research facilities showed that work continued around the clock. "What do you think happens next?" Sullivan asked. Vex considered the question carefully. 3 other species have already requested to join the Diversity Accords. The Zelani Republic is facing environmental problems they cannot solve alone. The Korath Federation wants to learn about democratic governance. The Thal Collective is interested in our agricultural techniques. The galaxy is changing, Martinez added. Word is spreading that cooperation works better than conquest. Species that used to fight over resources are starting to ask if they can work together instead. Sullivan smiled. And it all started because you were willing to share some old seeds with hungry strangers. Not just the seeds, Martinez replied. The ideas behind the seeds, the understanding that diversity makes us stronger, that helping others helps ourselves, that the best solutions come from combining different perspectives. As they watched, a shooting star crossed the sky above the colony. None of them mentioned it, but all 3 were thinking the same thing. That light represented the future. Bright, moving fast and heading toward unknown destinations. The Vorthak Empire had been built on the pursuit of perfection and control. It had ruled through force and maintained order through rigid hierarchy. But hunger had broken that empire and revealed its fundamental weakness. Humanity had offered something different. The strength that comes from diversity, the power of cooperation, and the wisdom of democratic choice. What emerged from that partnership was stronger than either civilization could have been alone. The new galactic order would not be built on conquest or domination. It would grow through voluntary cooperation between species who chose to work together. It would be messy, complicated, and sometimes chaotic, but it would also be resilient, adaptable, and capable of facing any crisis the universe might bring. As Admiral Sullivan, President Vex, and Director Martinez finally headed home to their respective quarters, the lights in the research facilities continued to burn. Human and Vorthak scientists worked side by side, developing new crops, new technologies, and new ideas that would benefit species they had not even met yet. The age of cooperation had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.